Welcome back to another episode of the Get Sculpted podcast. I'm Coach Jordana, and I'm here with Coach T and Coach Mare, and we are going to have a pretty interesting discussion today around protein. And I love the fact that protein is getting its own little cultural moment here, you know, being more prioritized, having an opportunity for mainstream people to really understand that this is an important macronutrient that we need. But now there's also things like protein coffee, protein cereal, protein ice cream, 150-gram protein challenges, carnivore diets trending again. It feels like if we don't have 30 grams of protein per serving, we don't even want it. We are under at every turn. We can't even hit the protein goal anymore because it's so high. So we are asking the question today, are we overdoing it? Or is this actually a good shift? And so we are going to break this down together. Girls, I have an opening question for you.
Yes.
When did you first notice that protein was going mainstream?
I don't know if I can pinpoint a time, but I would say in the last 5 years-ish that I've noticed. This is when I kind of started paying attention, especially
More
since
recently,
we started
yeah.
Get Sculpted. Yeah. But you're right, Jord. It's protein talk is everywhere on social media. And it seems like every brand, everything. Remember when we were in Vegas and we saw protein Pop-Tarts?
Yes.
Everything is protein,
yeah.
protein,
We have a video.
protein. And the other thing too is I feel like protein once upon a time was for hardcore gym people, right? If
Yes.
you were an athlete, things like that, you had to focus on it. But now it's being marketed to women 35 plus, right? Because, there's conversations around aging and perimenopause, postmenopause. So it's become a headline, right?
They're latching onto that marketing. They're like, you want protein?
100%.
We got protein.
Exactly. What about you, T?
You know what's interesting is that if I backtrack, when I went to nutrition school in 2014, I had a thing, and everyone did in nutrition school, and people who are nutritionists will know what I'm talking about, where too much protein is bad. It's too bad. It's bad for the kidneys. So
yes.
a decade ago we were saying that, and now,
Whoop,
thank God,
other side.
we know that's not true. But
right.
Yeah, I will say within the last decade that shifted for sure. And then it's really ramped up. And the funny thing is, which I know we'll talk about, is that that's how marketing works. They take one thing that is important, that does need to be brought to light, and then they make it all about that. And people think that is the one way. And if we zoom out,
grail.
protein is only one piece of the puzzle here.
Yes.
In the very, very big picture of what do you need to do to not only look sculpted, but live a healthy life.
Yeah.
Exactly. I love that. And for me, being a marketer, before I was a coach working in that environment, you nailed it, T. That is how it works. It's what's the psychological hook? How do we get people interested?
Yep.
And then how do you shift the message over time to keep people interested? And the shift right now is protein everything. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it is actually the protein that is promised. So
right.
I'd love to start, Mare, if you want to kick us off. Let's level the playing field. How much protein do women actually need to be healthy, to hit their goals?
Yeah, and this question does come up a lot. A lot of women ask us this question. And I think there's a difference between what is optimal and what is extreme. And there does tend to be confusion around that. So we know that it is an incredibly important macronutrient, of course. The general guidelines will tell you that for women trying to build or maintain muscle, you should aim for approximately 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. But that doesn't mean that everyone needs the exact same number. So if, you're 140 pounds and I'm 140 pounds, that doesn't mean we both necessarily need that 140 grams. There are a lot of factors that go into that. So just to give you some examples, body size, activity level, the level of intensity you're training with, your goals. But the interesting thing, and I think this is something that everybody here listening needs to really tune into, most women are actually under eating protein to begin with. So even though we're in this big protein era, a lot of women are under eating protein. And a big reason for that is that protein isn't the default in the same way that carbs and fat are, because those are much easier to consume.
You can find them everywhere.
Everywhere, literally. And and there are a lot of grab and go. Most grab and go things tend to be more
Convenience
carb or
food.
fat heavy. Exactly. So I think for women 30 plus, this is really important because in this stage of life, you do need to be very intentional with your protein because you naturally start losing muscle mass over time if you are not supporting yourself with resistance training and enough protein, right? So that's why it matters absolutely so much.
Yeah, and I just want to say this has also shifted because the general guidelines, and I think now people embrace protein almost too much, I will say, but before it was oh, we only need 0.8 per kilogram of body weight.
Yeah.
And I'm to prevent disease. But
Right.
like that's the important thing here. Like if you're not just someone who's frail and trying to like survive here. You're trying to, build a sculpted body. That's a different story. That's a different story. And I know we'll talk about this too, but that's also not just protein. It's like carbs and calories and fats as well. So I think that people are missing the forest for the trees here.
Yeah, totally.
And I was just going to add, like, I think it's also like they're looking for the cheat code of how to hit their protein goal, and they're not looking at quality. They're looking at, well, how do I hit this number? And I'm going to have the protein wrap. I'm going to have the protein infused milk. I'm going to have the meat stick. I'm going to have like everything but a chicken breast and a piece of steak, whole foods. And I think that's where we're kind of like going wrong off the rails here a little bit.
Yeah.
All of those products to me are like, hey, it's just going to amplify it a little bit. It is not the main course that we're supposed to be focusing on.
Hey, I love a good protein chip just as much as the next person. And I'll tell you, I love a protein bar. Sue me. I love it. It's like that meme that's like something to take the edge off and it's like you're smoking a cigar. For me, I love it. But I also know that is not the same as a chicken breast. And I don't have it all the time. I will say that's not the norm. That's like, oh, I'm in a foreign country. We don't get these at home. Let me try this, right? Same as I would a dessert or like a new whatever. But I share that because like if we zoom out, what are we all agreeing on here, right? Like we all, if you're listening to this, you want to have a healthy and balanced diet at the minimum. And then you also want to have a healthy and balanced diet that makes you look good and lean and sculpted. And at the core of that is whole foods. It's like 90% of your diet is foods that are nutritious and close to their whole form. Like, a whole steak that you grill up, rice, like quinoa, like the single ingredient, by and large. Vegetables. Yeah, exactly. So like in the context of proteins, it's animal protein with a full amino acid profile is going to be fantastic. And there's whole foods as well that are vegetarian where like there is amino acids in different ones that combine together. But then, if we look at something like a protein chip or protein coffee, they're not bad foods, but they're fortified with protein. So they're more far away from their whole form. They have more stabilizers. They have more gums. They're going to affect your digestion. They might make you a little bit bloated. And then at the end of the day, they're just a Band-Aid solution to a bigger issue, which is probably you not getting an eating pattern or preparing your foods like you were talking about, Jordan. And we share this. This is hard conversations we had with our clients. One of our standards is that home cooked is the default. So like if people are like, hey guys, I hit my macros and I've been, doing that with beef jerky and protein bars. Look, we're not here to judge anybody, but eventually we're going to say, hey, you've been doing that a few days now. This is looking like a pattern of like the meals are not getting prepped. And then that means that like we're not just looking at hitting the macros here. We're looking for quality. Would you guys add anything to that?
No, 100%. 100% agree.
Yeah. So I think that like when we talk about a lot here is like we want you to develop an eating pattern more than just take the marching orders, right? So the problem with these foods is that another problem is that if you're not tracking your food and you really don't know how much you're eating, you're kind of like just seeing high protein on a label. And at the end of the day, some of these things are not even going to help you hit that number in the first place. Because when I see like a cereal that says high protein, it's still like a 3-to-1 or 4-to-1 carb to protein ratio.
Exactly.
So like
or the Pop-Tarts. Or the Pop-Tarts.
Yeah, the Pop-Tarts.
Or like you're so obsessed with like counting the protein that you're like, okay, I got 10 grams from like the Fairlife milk. And then I got 15 grams from the protein wrap. And then I got 25 grams from the shake or the whatever it is. And you're adding that up, but you're ignoring the calorie side of things. So like your point T around the carb to protein, you're actually eating in a surplus. And if you were in a fat loss phase, you're like, oh, but I hit my protein goal.
But then the calories
but the calories are way too high. And in that case, you're going to overshoot your goal entirely and end up in the surplus. And you're going to end up gaining weight and asking yourself, like, why? How did that happen?
Yeah,
because you're ignoring the bigger picture.
Look, this is why I share this. Knowledge is power. So tracking is data. It's key. And don't resist the tracking because you're going to gain so much knowledge. You're going to be like, oh, I thought the beans were high in protein, but look at that. They have tons and tons of carbs. Again, beans are fantastic. But you have to have an understanding of like your calories and within that, the protein. And by the way, if you're listening to this and you're like, this is confusing. I understand the macros, but then I don't. And I try and do it on my own, but then I can't. Or you have the raw numbers that you got from a TDEE calculator, but then you're like, how do I actually make this into meals? This is what we do with our clients. We start you off with a process of, okay, this is what your macronutrients should be, but also this is what they look like in the form of meals. So like, we're not just giving you the fish, we're teaching you how to fish. And that's a really important piece of the puzzle. So If you're feeling overwhelmed, you want support, you want to know how to not only get your protein in, but hit the right nutrition overall for your goals, we would like to invite you to fill out an application and share more about your situation, and we'll see if we can help you as well. So we're going to leave that in the show notes. It is also found at getsculpted.ca/contact. Okay, so Jordana, let's bring us back to kind of the practical side of things. How can we hit our protein here without losing our minds?
Yes, perfect. So we want to really start stripping away the trends here. We want protein that is going to support our muscle retention, our satiety, and our overall metabolism so that we are feeling good throughout the day. And we don't necessarily need things like protein cereal or protein water or protein brownies to hit those targets.
Yeah.
They're maybe nice to haves, especially if you think they taste good and they're enjoyable to you. You can work them in, but they shouldn't be the foundation that gets you to your goals, and they shouldn't be like the anchors of your day. So let's break this down. You've heard us say this before, so we're going to say it again and again and again and again forevermore. But we want to anchor our proteins around whole foods each and every single meal. At minimum, if you're not weighing your food out right now, you want to have a palm size serving at least of that protein. If you're weighing it out, that's a different story. You'll want to be able to measure that for your own macros. And we want you to build your plate. Think of it this way. Your protein goes on first. It's going to take up about a third of your plate. Then your veggies is going to take up almost half of your plate. And then the rest is going to be the carbs, fats, dressing, whatever it's going to be. And if you're averaging anywhere from 25 to 40 grams of protein per meal, that is where you want to, like, that's going to be your home base. And if you're struggling to meet that, then your portions of your proteins are too small. You just need to have a bigger portion of protein.
Yeah.
And if we tie this into traveling, this is exactly the same approach that we have our clients do when they're not at home, when the default can't be home cooked because you're in another country, you're in a different environment, you're eating out a lot. You really want to make sure that you have those things handy for yourself too. Use the same approaches, the same tools when you're traveling. So girls, I would love to know a little lightning round if you're open to it.
You love the lightning round.
A lightning round.
Yeah, you do.
Let's do it.
After going through the conversation today, in one sentence, is the protein trend helpful or excessive? What's your personal take?
So helpful because it creates awareness, but it can become excessive when, like you said, the goal turns into like just chasing protein labels and like, what can I find that's high protein instead of the basics and building your meal around like whole food protein. So I'm going to give it a passing grade, but we have to proceed with caution. What about you, T?
My first thought was it is excessive because it's focusing on too much of one element when it's really the bigger picture that we need to focus on.
That's fair.
But in brackets, but yes, you still need to hit the protein.
I think I'm landing in it's a bit excessive at this point in time for similar reasons as you, T. I think we need to zoom out and have a much more holistic approach to health and fitness. We've been trying to find the magic bullet of what's going to make us healthy and fit for so long that really the key comes back to moderation in all things and taking specific action based on your specific goal and who you are as a person. And so, you know, like protein isn't a villain. It's also not magic either. It is very foundational, but it's not the only thing that you need to get and stay sculpted. There's a lot more factors that are going into that. And we don't like extremes. Like this is one of our foundations, right? And what we do need is to have the right picture built out for each and every person. And if there's a few high protein swaps that make your life easier, great. Like I like a protein pasta once in a while or a Fairlife milk in my matcha. So that's like, to me, helpful as opposed to overhauling and harmful. But the real problem is when you replace all foods with high protein versions in order to hit your goals. So if you want a system that makes hitting your numbers simple at home or while traveling or wherever you are, that's exactly what we teach our clients within our Get Sculpted system. We give you your custom protein targets, but not just your protein, all of your targets. We show you how to structure your meals around them, and we help you build the habits so they become second nature for you and your lifestyle. And so if you want your very own custom approach mapped out by one of our coaches on our team, not just generic advice, but tailored to your body, your goals, and your lifestyle, fill out our application at getsculpted.ca/contact. We have got your back, and we're so excited to talk to you. The next couple of episodes are some pretty awesome interviews that we've got coming up, and we will leave it there. I hope you have an amazing week, and we will see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.